Good evening, I'm Courtney Brooks. Welcome to Ask the Specialist. Tonight we ask the builders right here on CMU Public Television. Good evening, thank you for joining us. Tonight we invite you to call, tweet, or Facebook us your building related questions because we have two guests with us live in studio who are here to answer those questions. So at this time I would like you to meet both Mike and Andy. Thank you both so much for being here tonight.
Nice to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, well, we appreciate it very much, as well as our viewers. So Mike Tennyson of Howling Hammer Builders right here in Mount Pleasant, what kind of questions will you be able to answer tonight?
Oh, I could probably touch on a little bit of anything. I do mostly residential construction and remodeling, and I'm also a certified home inspector, so I see a lot of different things.
Okay, great. And then sitting to your left, we have Andy Tyson. Andy from Konwinski Construction here in Mount Pleasant as well. What's your day-to-day like? What kind of questions will you be able to answer?
You know, we do focus a lot of time on commercial construction, but we do custom residential work as well. So pretty much anything related to the building industry, I'll do my best to answer those questions for you.
Okay, perfect. So if you are looking to purchase a new home or you're looking at doing some remodeling, this is the show for you. So give us a call, 1-800-727-9268, and you'll speak with one of those phone operators. Or you can send us a tweet to @WCMU_AskThe. You can also head to our Facebook page, facebook.com/AskTheSpecialists, and send us a message or write on our wall, and those questions will be passed along as well. So again, give us a call, send us a tweet, or write on our Facebook page. So I guess right now we'll just start off with a simple question. With so many houses for sale, why should I consider purchasing a new home?
Well, there's a lot of advantage in it, that there's a lot of new products out. A lot of it would have to do with energy. Some of the energy products you can get from the mechanical equipment and that type of thing. There's a lot of things out there that continually come out, and I think that we can build a better house every year with the new products that are coming out.
Absolutely. The technology for construction is very simple, but it's also evolving at a very fast pace. So if you had that opportunity to build a new home, it would definitely be something to take advantage of.
Okay, so how about someone who doesn't have that opportunity to purchase a new home and perhaps they're getting an older one and they need to do some renovations? Is there a specific room that sticks out to you and your experience that will really help update an older home?
Well, the biggest things that we usually see are kitchens and bathrooms and things like that. Although there have been a lot of, we did a couple last year that were kind of whole house remodels where we did a lot of replacing all of the windows and that type of thing, because there are some energy rebates out there as well that people can take advantage of. But I would say that probably the two biggest things that you see are kitchens and bathrooms and basement finishes.
Absolutely. A lot of times in an older home you have an opportunity to take advantage of space that wasn't properly utilized, like a basement being finished or perhaps an attic area that could be converted into living space. But probably the best bang for the buck, I would say, would be bathrooms and kitchens, especially for resale value.
Okay, so perhaps they can't completely gut out those bathrooms and kitchens. What are some smaller ways, maybe less expensive ways that they can renovate those rooms?
Well, I mean, you can do little things, just changing maybe the countertops, changing the paint colors, the mirrors, adding some backsplash tile, things like that, floor covering, some things simple without actually ripping out all of the plumbing or the tub and that type of thing. There's also companies that will actually refinish, if you have an old tub, right in place, that you can do things like that may not cost a whole lot. So, you know, it just depends on your budget, what you want to do and how much space you have to work with as well.
Maybe let's chat about that backsplash tile. That's a nice little kind of do-it-yourself project that our viewers might be able to do. How many hours does that take? What different kinds are there to do?
You know, it really depends on the kitchen, you know, or the bath area. It depends on the size, will dictate, you know, the amount of time. But basically, you know, that's definitely a weekend project, you know, picking up the material at your local home center and go ahead and clear the area and get the work started. It can definitely be achieved in a weekend.
Okay, great.
We have some really good tile. I use a really good tile guy that does a lot of that, and we find that that really adds to a kitchen. Just to add that backsplash, accent in it. And they're actually coming out with some products that are pretty user-friendly for do-it-yourselfers. In other words, they don't even have to mix up all of the mortars and things to stick the stuff on the wall. It's more of just a stick type of a deal. And so there's some things that homeowners can do on their own if they don't or can't hire a professional to do it. But there's a lot of things you can do that don't cost a lot of money.
Okay, great, thanks. You also mentioned perhaps they could finish a basement if it's unfinished currently. We have a caller from Tustin who's looking at finishing their basement. What would you recommend for finishing the basement walls? Drywall, styrofoam panels, perhaps something else?
What we usually do is end up studding a wall in front of the basement wall, a 2x4 wall, and then our best recommendation is to insulate that wall, put your wiring and everything in it, and we use a closed cell foam that we spray into that cavity, and it actually seals right behind the studs and gives you some waterproofing as well as insulation. Everything's in there, and then you can drywall it just like a regular wall.
That's absolutely the best scenario, I would say. I agree with Mike 100%. There are a couple other options. For example, you could fur that wall out and then apply, an 1.5 inches of styrofoam or 2 inches of styrofoam if you didn't want to sacrifice the depth. But definitely, if you had the ability to stud the wall and spray the foam, that gives you the vapor barrier and the extra insulation. That would be the preferred option.
Okay, great. Now we have a viewer who doesn't have a basement but a crawl space instead here in Indian River. Should I eliminate the vents while putting in my crawl space?
That's been a debate, and that's changed over the last 10 years, and there's probably still some debate with it. But when we go in now, usually to insulate a crawl space, which is really a big deal right now, we again like to use the closed cell foam, spray it on the wall, and we do close the vents off. But it's very important as well that you have a visqueen vapor barrier or a plastic vapor barrier on the floor to keep the moisture from coming up in, and everything is sealed. So you're kind of creating a conditioned space in that crawl space.
That's really the only scenario that would allow you to close those vents.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you open yourself to a lot of moisture problems
Right.
and long-term damage.
Right. Now, do you spray that foam throughout all the walls?
We spray it on all the walls and right up into the rim joists or the bond area,
Okay.
so that the entire thing is sealed. But it's also, like I said, it's very important that they put the vapor barrier on the floor, and that's sealed in as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, heading outdoors a little bit, caller from Alpena is looking to build a pole barn with some living quarters. Should they use a 4x6 with a header or wood floor studs on top and build walls?
I
What
don't
would you
do a lot of
recommend?
pole barn construction, so.
I mean, and again, that's going to be something that would depend on the local jurisdiction, what code requirements they would have to meet, soil bearing capacity, a lot of different factors there. It would be tough to build a pole barn with living quarters above it and meet all code requirements. They may need to look at a foundation and a stick frame construction.
Okay. Also speaking outdoors a bit, a small shed. What kind of wood would be best for a small shed for a tractor? And do you have a specific size that you would recommend?
Well, you
for
just
that?
you need to make sure that the door's big enough to get the tractor in, obviously.
Right. That would be
and
important.
then anything that comes in contact with the ground needs to be a pressure treated or a treated type of lumber that isn't going to rot. And I would probably suggest that even the floor of it be a pressure treated plywood, so that as they get moisture on that floor and that off the tractor and those kind of things, that it doesn't rot it out eventually.
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thanks. This caller from Prudenville, their house is not insulated. They're wondering if they should put the plastic on the outside of the inside wall and then insulate, or should they insulate and then put the plastic over that? What is that order?
Plastic, I'm assuming they're referring to a vapor barrier situation. It's difficult to say without seeing the house.
Yeah, and what layers that they have in
Correct.
it. You got to be very, very careful with trapping moisture in a wall or that type of thing. I know that up in Canada and that, they always put a vapor barrier on the inside of the insulation, but they'll use a lot of fiberglass and that type of thing. So it also makes a difference on what type of insulation you're using, and they may not even need to put a plastic vapor barrier on if they're using certain types of insulation in that wall.
Yeah, typically I would suggest that the vapor barrier be on the outside and protect that moisture from coming in.
Okay, great. Let's chat about attics for a second here. A caller from Grand Blanc is wondering what you would suggest to remedy black mold in the attic.
That's definitely something best left to the specialists.
Yes.
You know, you're going to have to try and contact a local mold remediation company because that's definitely something that you don't want to deal with.
Right, and they're going to want to get a hold of that person ASAP, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. This caller from Remus about steel roofs, why don't they put ventilation access for attics and inspection place for fire departments to get in if there is a fire?
Typically, there should be an attic access point.
Even with a steel roof?
In a steel roof scenario, it still wouldn't prevent an attic access.
Yeah, I mean, you would still have an access from the inside of the building or
Correct.
somewhere into that attic space. You need to be able to get in there to put your insulation and that type of thing, and I'm not sure if we're catching exactly what they're asking.
Okay. Let's see, caller from Big Rapids, are the lumber basements any better than a block basement?
Well, the thing with the wood basements is, and they've been around now for a long time, probably 30-some years or more, and if you're going to put one in, it's extremely important that you have somebody that knows what they're doing because the drainage and everything else on that wood basement is critical. There is a problem sometimes when you go to resell the house that you may cut your market down a little bit in that some people will not buy a wood basement. Wood versus block, I will tell you that I have not done anything but a poured wall for a long, long time.
Definitely.
I don't use block at all.
Okay.
I would be much more likely to recommend either a block wall or a poured wall over the wood construction just for the long-term durability and waterproofing capabilities.
Yeah, and even if they use an ICF foundation, that is a block that they put and they fill it full of concrete, so that's another way to go.
Okay, are poured walls concrete walls?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they set up a form and they fill them full of concrete and they have steel rebar and that type of thing in them. They're actually stronger than a block wall.
Okay. Our caller from Indian River has one of those poured concrete basement walls, and the house is 20 years old, and they're noticing some minor cracks in those walls. Is that normal? Is there anything they can do to fix it?
Well, there are cracks. You will get cracks, and a lot of times those types of cracks will form on the form lines and that type of thing. And usually that won't be a problem, especially if there's steel in that wall. They aren't going to get any bigger. If they happen to have backfilled with clay or something where they're opening up and trapping water, I've seen where you can get leaks in those cracks. And in that case, sometimes what you have to do is actually have a company come in and epoxy inject those to stop the water coming through those cracks. But minor cracks in those types of walls don't generally hurt anything. Just have them make sure that their outside water control, their gutters and that type of thing aren't letting a lot of water build up against the wall and create a hydraulic pressure behind the wall.
And definitely, try and correct that issue as soon as possible, seal that crack up. As Mike said, it's likely to just be a surface crack, but without seeing it, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Okay, great. A caller from Harrisville moved into a home on Lake Huron recently. The second story is a large and open room, and they would like to put up a divider wall, possibly some pocket doors. They were wondering if that works well and if it's a good idea, if that is something that you would recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you, Mike, but I prefer when we do a pocket door scenario to actually build two separate 2x4 walls. I find over the years, having built pocket doors into the standard pocket door assembly, a lot of people will want to hang a picture on that wall and not have the depth, and I get calls back because they've actually ran a screw into their door because the pocket door assembly is not very wide.
Okay.
So a pocket door is something that's definitely advantageous, doesn't take up as much space, but I recommend two separate walls.
Okay. A caller from Farmington is replacing their windows. Is it best to replace the windows in frames or use the existing frames with a window insert?
Well, it depends on the condition that they've got there. You get into some old historic homes where you don't really want to have to remove all the trim and everything. So there are some window tilt, they call them tilt packs and different things that will fit inside that existing window frame that they don't have to remove all that trim and type of thing. In other cases, you may want to take out the whole thing and put in a whole unit. So it depends on the situation. You'd have to have somebody look at it.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate all the calls that we are receiving tonight. Again, give us a call, 1-800-727-9268. You can send us a tweet with your question to @WCMU_AskThe, or you can head to our Facebook page, facebook.com/AskTheSpecialist. Send us a message or write on our wall, and we will pass those questions on to Mike and Andy. So here's another one coming in from Holly. They're getting some frost between their insulation and the outside wall of their garage. How can you fix it and prevent it?
Sounds like a situation without a vapor barrier. For starters, it's going to be, again, a lot of these questions are difficult to diagnose without seeing them, but if there's any way that they can remove that siding on the outside of the house, get that vapor barrier installed, I think that might help combat that situation.
Yeah, we found sometimes you have to watch a little bit, like on new construction even, we found where you have an I-joist and they had fiberglass bats in there where the configuration of the I-joist would allow moisture and air to get behind the insulation, and that on the bond actually, and you would pull that insulation out and actually see frost back in there. So we actually, when we're going in and redoing them, we pull the fiberglass out, and that's where the foam actually works really well so that it seals it all off. But you'd have to see the specific situation to see what
the foam is a great option because it allows you to, inject that foam, and it's going to expand and fill all those cracks and crevices that you can't quite fully secure with a piece of fiberglass.
Caller from Sumner would like to remove a load-bearing wall. Is there a formula to determine the size of the beam to carry the load of the removed wall?
No specific formula.
No.
It's all job specific.
Yeah.
They're going to need to get a hold of a local builder and possibly an engineer to help them determine that.
Okay, sounds like a big project.
Well, it can be, but it might not be as well. It might just be, he's probably asking, would you use a 2x8 or a 2x10, or how big do you need?
See.
But that depends on span and what kind of load you've got above it and a lot of different things.
Okay. Maybe we can chat about heating. Caller from Big Rapids is wondering what's better, a forced air heating system or a boiler heating system, and if you know if there's a big price difference.
That's a tough call because with a boiler system, it's a very comfortable heat, and we used to see a lot of it years ago because you don't have the air kicking on and you don't feel that air blowing. The trouble with it is that you don't have air conditioning to go with it. So you have to put in an entirely separate duct system to run air conditioning with. We're seeing now where they're doing radiant heat like that with a boiler, only they're doing it like through geothermal or something like that.
With an air handler.
With an air handler or a different situation. So I don't know that there's a distinct advantage one way or another, except with forced air, you will have the ductwork there and you will have the ability with that system to air condition.
Right.
Okay, yep, that makes a big difference when determining between the two if you want AC
Absolutely.
or not.
Yeah, from a cost standpoint, there might not be a whole lot of difference. I haven't put a hot water system in a long time, just simply that.
Right. We do a lot of supplement heating with a boiler, for example, radiant heat in the floor for a bathroom or kitchen area where you're going to have tile. You might want to have that heat underfoot. But that would also be accompanied with the forced air system or a geothermal system and an air handler. So.
Okay. Caller from Northville lives in a condo and the walls are very thin and they can hear everything from the neighbors. Is there anything that this caller can do to insulate so they can block the noise coming in?
Unfortunately, they're probably going to have to check with their condo association to see what they're actually allowed to do in that scenario. Each facility is going to be different. So that's the first step. Second step is, again, the foam is always a great option, but it's difficult to do with a wall that's already sealed. So they may have a difficult time achieving that.
Okay.
The condo association may know how that was constructed, may have some plans or what kind of insulation is in those walls, if there is any in those walls.
Right. Maybe they would allow them to
They might allow them to
pay
do
for
something to.
the insulation in there. Worth checking out.
Sure.
Caller from Shelby Township is putting a new roof on their home. Would you recommend smart vents put around the perimeter of the roof?
I'm not sure what they're referring to.
Smart vents?
Not familiar with that product.
Okay.
I mean, typically you're going to determine the amount of ventilation you need based on the square footage of the attic area, and you're going to split that between the eave in the ridge line, but I'm not sure about that particular product.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're referring to either.
Okay, thank you. Where's the best place to get plans for a garage or a pole barn? Looks like this caller is looking for something that's inexpensive towards the free side.
You could look for a builder, but a lot of your home improvement stores or lumber yards and that type of thing have plans, they'll have all of the materials laid out for certain sizes of garages and things like that. So I would probably start somewhere like that, like one of the home improvement stores or the big boxes or a local lumber yard.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There are options available online as well. You know, a simple search online would maybe lead them to some basic ideas, but the plans are probably best received or purchased at the local home center.
Okay, great. We are getting a lot of fantastic questions from you this evening. Please continue to give us a call, 1-800-727-9268. You can head to our Facebook page, facebook.com/askthespecialists, or head on over to Twitter and send us a tweet to @WCMU_AskThe. We do have a social media question that just came in, so we have this for you both. This caller has the viewer has a 1972 modular home with aluminum windows. Is it worth the expenses of replacing them?
That's going to be a tough call. The construction methods used on that modular home may not be very receptive to a new window system. They may be opening a can of worms there. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they make specific replacement windows for modulars and mobile homes. They'd want to probably check into that. And it depends on the condition probably of the unit itself. As to, you don't want to put so much money into it maybe that, you know, it's not worth it. But there are definitely options. I know that the CAPS had programs that they were doing energy things and updating windows and sealing things, and so there's definitely ways to do it. You just have to check on the costs.
Okay, weigh their pros and cons.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have another viewer who has a question about a modular home. Theirs has a 12-foot overhang. Is there any way to extend the overhang to prevent water from being close to the basement walls? They don't want rain gutters.
That's too bad, because that would be the
answer.
The quickest and most cost-effective solution would be to install the gutter. Short of that, they're really looking to just extend that roof line to push it further away from the house, and they would probably just duplicate similar construction to what's there and just extend that eave edge out a little further.
Yeah, I'm a big gutter person. You know, get the water away from the building. And as I do inspections and that type of thing, when people have dampness in their basements and that's usually one of the biggest things, is that the water's getting dumped around the foundation. So, you know, I'm one of those people that says, you know, put the gutters on and get the water away from the building.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Caller from Gaylord, when do you put in the vapor barrier, and how do they seal it to the block wall?
On a basement?
I'm assuming.
Well, the vapor barriers, there's a lot of different types, and it's a waterproofing type thing. Usually that's on the outside of the wall, and it can be a painted coating on it, can be a sprayed on coating. They make them rubberized coatings. And now a lot of times you'll actually put a waterproofing on, and they make what they call drainage planes that you put against it. That allow the water to run down that plane and into the drain tile and that type of thing. So it would go on the outside, and there's a lot of options to pick from.
Okay, we're in our last few minutes here in the show, so we're going to try and get through as many of your questions as we can. This viewer from Rosebush is insulating the outside of the walls of the house, which is about 30 years old. What would you recommend and how to go about it?
Again, we've talked about it multiple times tonight. The foam is really a great option. If they have that as an option, I would recommend the foam for sure.
Yeah, they can go in from the outside. The companies have new systems that they can go in and make relatively small holes and that type of thing, and actually pump foam into a wall that even has fiberglass or something in the wall already.
Okay, caller from Mount Pleasant's house has settled and the nails are popping and cracking. How can they fix that? Andy?
Probably what they're going to end up having to do is go back and actually set those nails. And then, unfortunately, it's going to require patching and subsequent painting. If it's already settled, chances are it's settled as much as it's going to. So they can patch and repair those and repaint.
Okay. A viewer from Mount Pleasant has a room over a crawl space and is colder than the rest of the house. Is there a reason for that, and what can they do about it?
It's probably that the crawl space itself isn't conditioned, or they have vents into that crawl space with no insulation under the floor. And particularly if you'd have a hard surface floor or something like that, carpet would help a little bit, but I would get that crawl space insulated.
Definitely try and insulate it from underneath.
Yeah.
Okay, another Central Michigan viewer's attic is prone to ice dams. I have 14 inches of insulation, ridge and soffit vents, and I still have ice dams. What could I do to eliminate the moisture in the attic?
Well, I think their problem, if I had to guess, that their problem is that the ventilation isn't working at the soffit. In other words, they've got their insulation piled up against the roof deck, so the heat's transferring from the house all the way through the insulation to the roof deck, and that's causing an ice dam. And they need to have an insulator check for baffles in their soffits.
Okay, great. In ground swimming pool, caller from Grand Blanc has it and wants to fill it in. There's only 10 feet of access on each side of the home. Who would do this work, and would they be able to haul dirt in a way that is cost effective?
You'd probably be able to find a local excavator, something that they would have to do with a small loader, maybe a Bobcat or some other type of skid steer. Lots of small trips, but definitely something that could be done.
Okay, great. Unfortunately, that's really all the time that we have. We do have a lot of questions that we weren't able to get to, so hopefully we'll be able to answer some of these for you after the show and post them on our Facebook page tomorrow. So write this down, facebook.com/askthespecialists. So please check that out tomorrow. But again, thank you for joining us, and thank you both to Mike and Andy for being here. We have Mike Tennyson from Howling Hammer Builders in Mount Pleasant and Andy Tyson of Konwinski Construction in Mount Pleasant.
Thanks for having us, Courtney.
Thank you.
All right, also thank you to our phone operators who are here to answer your calls tonight. The ladies are from the Home Builders Association of Central Michigan, so a big thanks goes out to them. So again, please check out our Facebook page tomorrow for some answers that we could not get to this evening, and we hope that you can join us next week for an all-new edition of Ask the Financial Planners. I'm Courtney Brooks. Good night.